Have you ever wondered about the real implications of climate change? How it's not only about rising temperatures, but a threat to life as we know it. Climate change, a phrase we've all heard countless times, is the long-term alteration of our planet's weather patterns. Our blue planet, our only home, is experiencing a shift that is anything but ordinary. It's not just about scorching summers or freezing winters. The reality is far more complex and far-reaching. It's about the rising sea levels that threaten our coastal cities, the extreme weather events that disrupt our lives, the loss of biodiversity that upsets the balance of our ecosystems. It's about a world where these changes are not just possibilities, but inevitabilities. But the question here is, how urgent is this issue? How immediate is the threat? How severe are the consequences? This leads us to a critical concept, one that perhaps you've heard of but may not fully understand: the climate emergency. So, what is a climate emergency? It's more than just a buzzword, it's a call to urgent action. A climate emergency is a state of dire urgency, a critical situation prompted by the quickening pace of climate change and its detrimental effects on our planet. It's a declaration, a red flag raised high, acknowledging the grave severity of the environmental crisis we're currently facing. It's a resounding call to arms, emphasizing the immediate need for comprehensive action to alleviate the impacts of climate change. The term climate emergency is no stranger to governments, organizations, and activists worldwide. It's a phrase that carries weight, a phrase that communicates the pressing need to address climate-related challenges head-on. These challenges are numerous and diverse, ranging from rising global temperatures, escalating sea levels, extreme weather events, a tragic loss of biodiversity, to disruptions to our ecosystems. Declaring a climate emergency isn't a declaration made lightly. It's a commitment, a promise to prioritize efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, a pledge to transition to sustainable practices. It's the promise to adapt to the changing climate, to minimize further damage, to protect not just our well-being, but the well-being of future generations. We're not just fighting for ourselves, but for our children, our children's children, and all the generations that will follow us. The implications of a climate emergency are as serious as they sound. If immediate action is not taken, the consequences could be catastrophic. We risk altering our planet beyond recognition, rendering it uninhabitable for future generations. The urgency of the situation cannot be understated. Every moment that passes without action brings us closer to a point of no return. Governments and organizations play a pivotal role in addressing this crisis. Their actions, or lack thereof, can tip the scales in our favor or against it. They have the power to enforce regulations, to invest in sustainable technology, to inspire change on a global scale. The climate emergency isn't a distant threat, it's a present reality, and it demands our attention now. But it's not all doom and gloom. There's something each of us can do to combat this crisis. So let's talk about taking action against climate change. It's a global issue, yes, but it's also a personal one. Each of us in our daily lives contributes to the emissions of greenhouse gases, but that also means that each of us holds the power to reduce them. Firstly, let's consider our carbon footprint. This is the total amount of greenhouse gases produced by our individual actions. It ranges from the energy we use at home, to the food we consume, to the way we travel. By making conscious decisions like opting for renewable energy sources, eating less meat, recycling, or choosing to bike or walk instead of driving, we can significantly reduce our carbon footprint. But individual actions, while important, are not enough on their own. We must also support systemic change. That means advocating for policies that promote renewable energy, sustainable agriculture, and green infrastructure. We need to hold corporations and governments accountable for their environmental impacts. We can do this by voting with our wallets, by supporting businesses that prioritize sustainability, and by voting in elections for leaders who understand the urgency of the climate crisis and are committed to taking decisive action. We can also educate ourselves and others about the reality of climate change. Knowledge is power, and the more people understand about the climate crisis, the more they can do to help combat it. Finally, we can support the work of scientists, environmentalists, and activists who are on the front lines of the fight against climate change. This can be through donations, volunteering, or simply spreading their message. In essence, combating climate change requires a collective effort. It's about all of us coming together and doing our part, big or small. Remember, the fight against climate change starts with you. It's time to act, because our planet, our home, can't wait any longer.